As a dancer and a choreographer, I've always been in awe at productions and story themes that weave through performance. As a visual artist, I'm in awe at the way that people look at color, light, sound, space, darkness, pattern, and more. As we're approaching the Celtic Colours International Festival this October, I'm excited to share the talents of weaving artist extraordinaire Dianne Quimby. Dianne has produced specialty tartans that have been highlighted in performances, at special events, with the Governor General, and one of her latest patterns, which was celebrated on September the 3rd for the International Day of Square Dance. This special tartan I was gifted last year, and I wear with pride, but also with awe at the power of her art to transform. So for those that are listening to the podcast, I have the tartan around my neck, and so you'll have to look for a picture. Today, in preparations for the community event that's going to happen with Celtic Colours International Festival, we have the music of the Landscape of Cape Breton on October the 8th at 2 p.m. at the Inverness County Center for the Arts. And we're exploring the power of weaving as an art form and then the transformer of the landscape. Dianne Quimby is sharing her knowledge of color, texture, and patterns through her advanced studies and years of experience in weaving, where she's currently earning herself a master's degree. It is a delight to be in the presence of such an accomplished and creative artist. The art of weaving incorporates an imaginative design sense, the skill of a mechanical engineer, the eye of a colorist, and joy in the creative process. Those are Dianne's words. And Dianne brings all of this and more than 25 years' experience to her weaving. She is passionate about creating cloth and loves to pass that passion on to others. Dianne learned to weave at Nova Scotia Designer Craft Council classes in Halifax, and since has studied under Canadian master weavers like Laura Fry and Jane Stafford. Other influences have been Robin Spady, Janet Dawson, and Swedish weaving techniques with Becky Ashton. She can be found frequently selling and demonstrating at community markets and in local weaving studios eager to teach others the intricacies of the weaving art. Her weaving can be found around the globe at wovencloth.ca. You're listening to Be Well with Michelle Greenwell. This podcast is sponsored by Dance Debut Inc. and the Cape Breton Tea Company. Please welcome Dianne Quimby. Hello, Dianne.
Hello, Michelle.
I'm reading all these beautiful pieces, and I'm thinking about some of the musicians that I've interviewed who have to transport a harp, around and how they navigate all that. But you have to transport a weaving loom. It's a little bit bigger.
Just a bit.
A little bit more intricate. Yeah. Just when, people pick up their, the thing they like to do, what does that mean for people? What kind of car do they have to buy? And then how do they have to navigate all the things they have to navigate?
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm very fortunate in that I have a wonderful little loom that came by way of my husband and his family. They were weavers, and they created looms back in the 70s. And so I have a small loom that can make it to market without too much difficulty in my SUV.
Perfect. I love it. Now, before we dive in, I usually pull a card from my card deck so that I have an affirmation. So those people who are listening on the podcast, maybe this is your first time that you're going to be listening. And what I try to do is, through the conversation, create a way for you to bring balance and flow for things that are going on in your life. And so I usually pull a card with an affirmation. But I thought it would be fun today to actually have you, Dianne, describe the scarf that I'm wearing and the three figures of the Mabu square set tartan. And we're just going to be able to bring the intricacies of that pattern in, and then I'll add an affirmation afterwards. Do you want to describe the tartan?
Sure. It has three colors, which relates to the three figures of the square dance that's done here in Mabu and other areas of Cape Breton. And that might not make sense to people who don't know about square dancing, but the dance itself is divided into three parts. So three colors representing different things. There's red, which represents the energy that people bring to the dance. There's just nothing like seeing people out there on the floor just whipping around and having a good time. And there's so much energy, you feel it as soon as you walk into the hall. The next color would be black. And it's a dark color. Lots of dances are done at night, but I thought it represented more of the dark wood of the fiddles that are being played, and even maybe the pianos, but in particular the fiddle, because it's a big, intricate part of a square dance here. And then the three white lines, well, three, of course, because it's the figures, but also you can get a sense of people dancing in and amongst themselves. And that's what the white colors represent for me. And it's an asymmetrical pattern that I felt was in fitting in with the dance movements. They just don't do things the same every time. They move around, and it's a little different. So that's my scarf. That's my tartan.
I love it. And I was just trying to show those people that are seeing this maybe on the YouTube channel, not actually on the podcast, but when you were talking about how it's not symmetrical, that's what I love about it, because a lot of the tartans are so symmetrical. And I love that the way that the colors kind of move through and how the black transitions with the red. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. It's beautiful. And then to think about how you can capture the color in some kind of pattern like that, and exactly what you're describing. What do you see while you're there, and what's the experience that comes out of it? Yeah.
In the weaving itself, you mean?
Well, even just in your thought patterns about what you see when you go to the dance, and then how do you transfer that thought into a pattern that you would put into a tartan?
Yeah, it's very difficult because I think more than anything, I work with the color combinations first before I even know what they are representing. So those colors came together, and you can find those colors in other tartans, but not like this one, where the actual picture with your scarf, you can see that it's almost three-dimensional, like the dance and all those people in the hall and the joy that's happening there. So when you start playing with those colors together, and they look like something, they have a feeling all by themselves, and then you start thinking, well, here's the three figures. They just come to you. The white lines make it just, there's three. What's happening in threes? That dance. Yes. Those fiddles. And that energy is amazing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So now that we've got the description, and the people on the podcast are listening, and they're thinking about where in their life maybe they've got some energy and vitality, where they really get excited about what they're doing. And what I did is I pulled a card from the deck. So this is my affirmations for the Body and Biofield deck. And for those that have listened before on the podcast, I always hold up the black cover, which has a ribbon of color on the front of it, which represents child and baby, or mother and baby, sorry. And just bringing in that idea again of how that color, like you said, multidimensionally wraps and has a life of its own. I guess it's multidimensional, it's not flat. And that's the same with the ribbon. But what I pulled from the card deck was, and I'm holding up the card not so much because I wanted to show the front of the card, which is pinks, purples, yellows, and some whites, and circular kind of action. But the affirmation for the people listening today: miracles happen every day in every way. Invite miracles to your dinner table, and then feast on the bounty of the harvest. And this has to do with how the energy is around you in the 12th, they call it the 12th chakra, the outer edge of who we are. And so I just wanted to bring that thought together. So now we've taken that pattern and we put it into this bigger picture and the outside edge and what it does for people to really bring them to life. And like I said, when I wear this scarf, it has such joy for me when I put it on, and I choose particular places where I like to wear it. So big events is usually a great spot. So yeah. Okay, so Dianne, I also like to have a cup of tea, and that's just to remind people that are listening to take the time to stop, listen, enjoy, be present for a few moments. Have you got something beside you today?
I do. I have a green tea whose name is raspberry meringue. I love raspberries. Meringue, yes, of course, but together, I thought they'd be interesting. So that's what I've been drinking.
And do you have a mug with you there?
Actually, I do not. It's upstairs.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to share what I put in to go with your meringue. So I chose the Queen Mary because I thought I'd highlight the creamed Earl Grey today with bergamot. And I thought I'd bring the spirit of bergamot forward because it kind of matched with our conversation today. So bergamot uplifts the spirit and provides insight while relaxing the system. And I thought that was really interesting because most people will drink a black tea so they can have that caffeine hit and, get a pickup. But it actually, with the bergamot, creates a relaxing effect, which is really interesting. So this is a powerful herb for those people looking for insight. Those people that know about the brow chakra, that's where it likes to spend its time. And as we look at the power of the patterns that we've got, I just want people to be empowered by the energy that they can create with the tea, along with what we're going to talk about today. And I put everything into my dance debut mug today. So this one I was thinking about, Dancing on the Mountain is the original logo that I've had, and then all the forms of dance over the years that I've taught. But the step dancing really is the one and that's why I live here, because it is just so much fun to bring forward. So cheers, and thank you for joining me for the podcast.
All right.
Okay. Oh my gosh. I just love that one. All right. So let's go from where we've been. I'd like to know how you got into weaving.
Well, really, it's my husband's fault. And I've told this story many times. I met my husband in Halifax, but his family were here in Cape Breton, and they were all weavers. His mother had studied with master weaver. In fact, Bill took lessons when he was 17 out in British Columbia. And there's been a loom in the family for a long time. And Betty had a little room in her house where she had set up a few smaller looms, and she had students come in. That was one of her teaching iterations. She did many. And so when we had the chance to move to Cape Breton, I jumped at it. But I wasn't even thinking about the weaving so much as I wanted the freedom to sleep nights. I had been a nurse. And so we came here, and backtrack a little bit. Before we came, I thought I should learn to weave, but not have my new mother-in-law teach me. So I took classes in Halifax, and then we moved to Cape Breton, and I started weaving with her, which was lovely because she was very knowledgeable and a beautiful weaver. And so that's where it started. Yeah.
Wow. I did not know that. That is very cool. And so from there, you've studied with many different people. How do weavers gather to share knowledge? What is the...
Well, of course, nowadays you can do so much online, but back in those days, you would want to find somebody who had a studio where you could participate on a loom and learn some technique. Also, there would be workshops Not very often, but they would show up, and if you were lucky enough, you'd find out about them. So that's what happened for me was, besides Betty's teaching, I would go to whatever workshops were available. I also joined a guild of weavers, so I could spend time with people who understood the language as well as the problems. Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay, so let's go from there to some of the different tartans that you've created.
Well, I think the first one that I will tell you about was it just hit me one day. I was at market, and this woman went by, and her husband is a brewer here in Cape Breton. And I said, you know what? Your company needs a tartan. And she went, you're right. And it was a bit of a shock for both of us. And this was the Big Spruce Brewery in Nyanza, and they were keen. So I made them a tartan, and it just kind of went from there. I then got involved with, as a member of the Scottish Tartan Register. Anybody can join up for that. You get to see new tartans as they're being presented to the world, and there are many. And so that led to the more famous story about getting to meet the Governor General and go to Rideau Hall. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a thrill. Absolutely.
And so with that one, tell me a little bit about the colors that you put into that and the kind of pattern that what would inspire you about the Governor General?
Well, in honesty, I did not design that one. What happened was a dentist friend, an amazing woman whose hobby it is to make tartan, and designing only. So I saw her design through the registry. I wrote her because I thought it was so unique. The colors they just grabbed me. And so she told me that the colors came from the coat of arms of Canada. And she had worked with our National Herald in Ottawa to create this tartan, but she's not a weaver. So she had me weave for her. And through a series of events, happy events, the Governor General's office chose that particular tartan to be the vice-regal tartan. It is meant for the Governor General, the Lieutenant Governors of the provinces, and the territorial, I'm not sure what you call them, leaders, let's say. And so as a result, we were presenting that tartan to the Governor General, who happened to be David Johnston at the time. And so I got a trip to Ottawa, and we got a special tour of Rideau Hall, and we got to present him. I made him and his wife each a scarf, and it was just wonderful fun. Yeah.
Wow. And that's the thing about the arts, is you never know the voyage it's going to take you on. You have an inspiration in something, because I just know that from dance too, and piece of music lifts you up, and then all of a sudden off you're running, and these experiences, they're just so beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So are there any other tartans that you've worked on this last little bit that have been
a couple. I was asked to produce design for the Halifax Regional Municipal Police, which was kind of interesting. For me, it was very special in that I grew up in Halifax, and I lived across the street from a policeman. And I thought of him the whole time that I was coming up with their design. They gave me one of their patches that they have on their uniforms, and those were the colors that I used. And so that was a proud moment. And the other one is much more personal. It's actually on the loom sitting beside me right now. It's a family piece for my husband's family. Their history is having a dairy farm in New Hampshire. And it all happened, the dairy farm happened before Bill was even born, but it has strung this family together in many ways. And for a long time, I thought that that would be a nice thing to create a particular tartan for those family. And so that's what I'm working on now. The tartan is registered already, and I'm just doing some weaving of it for the family.
Wow, what a beautiful gift. Yeah.
Well, yeah. If you got it and you can share it, why not?
and then what you're pulling off of a loom, for those people that might not know, you can do runners, scarves, placemats.
Yeah, table runners, placemats, well, just about anything. And I even tweak my tartans to become guitar straps, which is ridiculous because they don't look like tartan. But the colors that you take from the tartan are embedded in the same kind of set or pattern, if you will, of the long stripes of a tartan. And so I've done, a few of those. So it's kind of fun too.
Yeah. And for those people who understand intention, the opportunity to be able to have that across their back as they're creating with their instrument, it's a lovely way to bring in family or to bring in colors or feelings that they want to use while they're playing. Yeah, and it's just sitting there. I'm really interested in knowing a little bit more about some of the work you've been doing on your master's program, because you had mentioned to me about studying a particular color, and so I'm curious, what does that look like to have a degree like you're pursuing?
Well, it's a personal thing. It's a personal goal that may not change anything about my weaving as I go forward. Just that I will have achieved that bit of thing that I've been, heading off into the sunset, searching for. It has been an opportunity for more learning, and I am truly a lifelong learner. And so not only do you dissect fibers along the way, but you get a chance to work with some incredible other students who are, to my mind, they're already master weavers, but they're my cohort, and we feed off each other. We support each other, and we all want to be there at the end. And so it's a good thing to be doing, really. As much as I complain about the workload, it's a good thing.
I'll agree with you, but I think that's the journey, right? The journey is overcoming the workload.
That's right. Yes.
And
yes,
how many rabbit holes can you take yourself down in what you're interested in knowing and pursuing? And yeah. So the end result is just, yes, you have the achievement, but it's that whole, and it's going to be weaving. I'll use that term because you're in and out of knowledge areas you never thought you would travel. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what are some things that have come up for you that you never expected?
Well, in this the last year, the homework forced me to stop and look at one color. You mentioned that, and to discover many ways in which it's been used, how it's been developed over the years, where it came from originally, and just a huge history of the color violet. And I'm wearing my purple. There's purple behind me because it has infiltrated my life now. When I go to buy flowers, I see purple and I want it. It's just become an amazing thing. I also have had a chance to try structures of weaving that I would never have done before. One of the things is a Norwegian structure called krokbrag, which is it's just a fun thing. You get to play with color and make little designs, and it's terribly slow, but it's wonderfully funny. And so those are the things that I've been able to tap into on the journey.
Beautiful. And I'm thinking about how you said, you dove into that color purple, mm-hmm. and then the attraction that comes from it. And that's the key piece, I think, that I hope will come out of the event that we're having at the Arts Center, is for people to realize the colors around us, they might seem random, but how we interact with them, we have this ability to be attracted to colors or to be supported by color. And also our experience can transform by color. And we don't really think about that so much. Especially if we try to solve problems with our head, or we're trying to put things right, but we don't realize we could reach out to a color, and the color could be the texture on the wall. It could be in the scarf that you're wearing, it could be the clothes that you choose to put on, but they all do have a meaning and a power. So I'm fascinated that that's what you're attracted to now, and it's pulling you in. And the gifts that purple has the opportunity to share.
Right.
I'm thinking about those people who understand the chakras. They'll be thinking, because that's going to be brow chakra into crown chakra, and that's going to be opening up for intuition and ideas and creativity. And that's a great way for people who are looking for that to be able to make a connection. Yeah. So I'm thinking about how you've changed the decor. Has it filtered into the house as well?
Not so much. In my weaving, more than anything, I guess. My house has been a lot of blues and yellows, so it's hard to get that purple groove going yet. Maybe someday. Yeah, but it's definitely in my studio. Beyond the hangings on the walls, I seem to have accumulated a lot more purples in my yarns and use them more.
Beautiful. And anybody else that you've got in the class with you, because they would have all been picking up different things, anybody else that's navigated to a certain color as well, or maybe a set pattern that they've...
It may well be. One of my friends in class, we all had to study the making of rugs as another part of 1 year, and her little sample to send in was absolutely stunning in the technique that she used, and so we're talking her into doing a workshop on it for the rest of us now. So that's how that moves around. As you do your learning, then you want to teach and get it to others. And that's a big part of who we all are, actually, in that class.
Yeah. Wow. That's beautiful. So that leads us to, if people are interested in weaving, how would you suggest they get started? What's a good way?
Probably the best way is to try and find another weaver. One who will either share or at least can lead you towards another teacher. You can do lots and lots and lots online, but there's nothing like the personal interaction in a weaving situation. It just means everything. When we had COVID the opportunity was there to do online with a lot of different pieces or different types of learning. But weaving is one of those things that you just need to be at the loom, and somebody needs to help you with that. So in-person learning is a big thing. A lot of people start with the very smallest of looms, which might be a table loom, or it might be a what we call a rigid heddle loom. And then you work your way up to the bigger looms and the more advanced or technical looms, that kind of thing. But you need a good starting base to begin with, and can only get that with an instructor in your face.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
And so the other part of that is, I know it's almost a meditative thing. Once you've got everything set up and you get into the pattern of working with the pattern that you are building, can you talk a little bit about what you experience when you're weaving?
Yeah, I can actually, because this morning I have a new piece on one of my looms, and I could easily have gone and woven something very simple, but I decided to make it a little more complex, more so that I wouldn't get bored than anything, but I thought it would look nice if I did it this way. So you start working and you have a little pattern. Maybe it's going to repeat and repeat and repeat. And you could get off in a zone and forget where you are, which is also a problem. So the board, the chalkboard in my room, the very first thing on it says focus, so that I'm reminded that I need to pay attention, so that I don't make errors and I don't have to backtrack to get right again. But also that, once I've decided this is my design, and I want to focus on just it, nothing else in the room. And this room is full of lots of other things to take me away. But that's kind of where I go. I focus on what I'm doing. Yeah.
Interesting. So I'm thinking about, for those people where, that mindfulness approach, meditation, empty the mind out, this is a way for people to acknowledge a little bit more about the intricacy of being really present to what you're doing and being connected to it. Because you definitely, I'm imagining you trying to backtrack out of a pattern, especially if you find it, 10, 20 strokes back.
Not fun.
No. No, I can imagine that. Okay, so for people listening, the reason that I really wanted to have Dianne's work represented at this particular show is because I wanted people to really connect into the colors and to connect into the patterns and start to realize a little bit more about the textures. And we do have some landscape paintings that we're going to work with, and we have some other paintings we'll be working with. But I really wanted something that was more of the texture and to be able to put the hands on. And like I said, when I wear this scarf, I really get connected to it, and it just gives me such joy. So we have that happening, but also we're weaving into the whole thing. Weaving, there's that that term again.
You can't get away from us.
Can't. My enjoyment of color, which is taking a flight of tea. So typically it would be a flight of whiskey, but we're actually going to do a flight of tea. And as people walk around the different pieces of art at the event, they'll be able to have a cup of tea that is linked up to that particular piece of art. And so the colors are actually going to change as they go through the tea as well. And this will give people a chance to interact a little bit more with color again. And then we also have a Scottish fiddler coming in. So I know we have lots of fiddlers here in Cape Breton, and they're going to be very busy because it's Celtic Colours. But Colin and I have been working intuitively with music And he's been helping my movement classes so that the body can relax and unravel some of the tension that it's holding on to. And so he's been working away with how to play intuitively, and we're bringing that also into the concert with two harpists. But Colin has not seen this tartan, so he's going to be seeing it for the first time and then being able to react to it, which will be interesting because he is not familiar with the Cape Breton square set. He will be by the time he heads home, but this will be an opportunity for him to feel what he brings, or what he can experience from what you've created. And so it's a different way of seeing a concert because people have prepared things and they're very set on what they're going to do, but we wanted to play a little bit to see what would come forward. So I wanted to share that a little bit so people could understand. Is there anything that I haven't asked you, Dianne, that is kind of interesting about weaving, or even some of the things that you've worked on?
I can't think of anything right off the top of my head. I'm very proud of the work that I have done as a teacher over the years as well. I have a lot of students. I worked for a few years at the Gaelic College, and I worked with youth as young as 6 years of age and as old as 88 years of age.
Oh my God.
Was a very, very interesting experience. My one youth student in particular followed me all the years that I was there. And what a treat to watch somebody blossom through the process, and the absolute enthusiasm that she developed was truly infectious. And so, that's one aspect of this whole picture here that I'm very, very pleased about.
And okay, now you said 6 years old.
Yes.
So a 6-year-old, that they'd have to be pretty specific that was what they wanted to do.
Yes, she was. That's one of the things that drove me or took me to her, was she really wanted to learn this. She saw what was happening and just had to be part of it. She wasn't alone. There were others, but there was something about this one girl and her enthusiasm, her passion, and it's with her still. She's now 16, and she still loves to weave. Wow. And so it's very nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have imagined. And then going to the other side of the spectrum to 88. Mm-hmm. So is that somebody that all their life that's what they wanted to do, they just never got a chance?
Nope. She and her husband started coming to the Gaelic College. I don't think with anything specific in mind. He played instruments. He has passed away, but and she did some Gaelic. But along the way, she bumped into the weaver, and many years ago, because she's been coming to the college now for almost 30 years in a row, bar that COVID thing. So this is something that she only does at the Gaelic College. The rest of the year, she does not have a loom at home, but she is a beautiful weaver. So when she comes, we walk her, and it's almost starting from scratch, all the way through a project that she can, feel very proud about. And she's a pretty special lady. And just loves to weave. That's all she does at the college.
Wow. So I'm just thinking about those people listening who put something on a bucket list or delete it from the bucket list because it's just not going to really happen. But to just think about it's possible, and, go give it a try and see what happens, because the joy that comes from that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Beautiful. All right. So to finish up the podcast, I always try to do something to do with movement. Is there a particular kind of movement? Is there like a rhythm pattern that happens when you're on the loom?
There is, but I'm not going to teach you. And the reason for that is that you you approach the loom and you try to maintain as much ergonomic movement as possible. So there are certain little tricks based on your bench that you're using, or the amount of weaving you intend to get done in a period of time. Weaving is very hard on shoulders. And so, yeah, there are a few things that I have to do to maintain my shoulders. I've already replaced one. I don't want to do that again. Yeah, I'm not going to teach you. It's too specific to the loom itself and the bench and so on.
But what's interesting that you've said is that you have to think ergonomically about what you're doing. Yes. I think of these people that are stuck in front of their computers and they freeze into these positions for long periods of time without moving. Yes. And not realizing how that's impacting them and their thinking and their health. And with the loom, to know that you have to make sure you have a really good pattern of movement happening so that you do support all the muscles in the shoulders and up through the neck. That's really interesting. And so I'm just going to invite people then to think about the patterns that they have in their own life. So one could be their movement patterns, and where they don't move and where they do move, and how they might be able to include more movement so that, well, computer neck is what I call it, or driving neck, because a lot of times people's heads fall forward, just the position of the car seat, or I find myself leaning into the computer all the time. It sucks me in or something. But then to think about if that pattern could be changed. And then the other thing I would invite people to do is think about where patterns show up for them. So I know when my husband mows the lawn, he's always making a pattern. And sometimes he likes to do it in a circle, but sometimes he likes to take it in diagonals. And so just thinking about where in your life you might be able to put patterns in, or patterns show up, because those patterns have different energies to them. And so noticing where do you get more energy out of a pattern and where might you get less. So I know it's a little bit on the abstract side, but a little bit of fun for that. So Dianne, thank you so much for sharing your expertise. And I appreciate that I know you're going to be at another event, but your artwork will be sitting at the Arts Center and on display, and also with the opportunity for people to interact with it. And thank you so much for that opportunity.
My pleasure. Thanks.
Season 3, we're devoted to the transformational process that happens when people reach into their authentic selves and create magic. And our season has several publications. So you're listening to the one where I get to explore a little bit about the things that I really enjoy and I work in. And today Dianne was joining me on that little journey. And at the end of the month, we always talk about the Moyo family in Malawi, Africa, and how people can ask the right questions to be able to support and find out what people need. And I find that the expertise of my sister, Charlene Waynes, I don't know how she knows to ask the questions that she does, but it's always an interesting journey about what she's learned about the family and how we can be supporting from across the world on the other side. Thank you for joining us. This is Be Well with Michelle Greenwell, wishing you the courage to face your own transformation for the well-being of those around you as well as for yourself. Have a great day.